Okay, welcome everyone this evening to Save a Library's program on facts for voting in the general elections, presented this evening by the League of Women Voters of Suffolk. We are very happy and privileged that the League of Women Voters has offered to go over tonight's content and be a resource for our communities. We are very thankful for the work that they do. And just a moment before we begin, we are recording this presentation, so you have the ability to shut off your video screen if you choose to do so. You also have the ability to mute and unmute yourself as well. What we'll do is have a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation at the beginning, and the League will go through all of their content, and then we'll open it up. After we stop sharing the screen at the end of the PowerPoint, we'll open it up for questions and answers and take any questions that our audience may have. Without further delay, my name is Jonathan Pryor. I'm the head of community outreach at Save a Library, and it is my privilege to have both Linda and Nancy here with us from League of Women Voters. And I will turn the presentation over to them to do a brief introduction, and then Linda and Nancy, if you would let me know when you're ready for me to share the screen for the PowerPoint, I will do so. But for now, I'll turn this over to you.
Okay, well, first we really want to thank Jonathan a lot. He not only invited us to come, so it inspired us to plan it, but he's worked with us to show us how to do the Zoom and to answer any questions and to be there for us, which is really great. So the League of Women Voters, and actually we're the League of Women Voters of Brookhaven. We're smaller than Suffolk, but that's fine. We're connected to Suffolk. Anyway, we are a nonpartisan political organization encouraging informed and active participation in government. And we try to influence public policy through education and advocacy. So, Linda, we're going to start with the slides then, right?
Okay.
And I can see that this was not a good place to put this.
Okay, Jonathan, do you want to start with the first slide?
Yes, bear with me just a moment and I'll start screen sharing.
Nancy Maher is the president of the League of Women Voters of Brookhaven, and I'm a member of the board and the recording secretary. We're really happy to be here. We're so appreciative of all the help that Jonathan gave us, because neither Nancy nor me had ever done a PowerPoint on Zoom. So it was, it's been a learning experience, so just bear with us. If we could go to the next slide.
Bear with me just a second.
In the United States Constitution, it talks about the fact that every state makes its own election laws. So this turns out to be something that can be very chaotic and confusing for people, because the processes and the procedures that are followed in the other 49 states can be very different from what we do here in New York. This year, there have been, in the last 2 years, and especially this year, New York State has made a lot of changes to the procedures that have been followed. And now we have 3 separate options for casting a ballot. You can do early voting, you can vote absentee, and you can vote on election day at your usual voting place. We're going to talk about how each one of these options works during this PowerPoint presentation, which we think is going to last like 15 or 20 minutes before we get to your questions. So the very first thing that I think you might be interested in is, how can you be sure that you are registered to vote?
Okay, well, you must be registered in order to vote. You may register if you'll be 18 years of age by election day, a resident of the county for at least 30 days prior to the election, and a citizen of the United States. Now, 16 and 17-year-olds can pre-register to vote, but they will not be able to vote until they're 18. You may only vote in one state. If you have moved within the state since the last time you voted, you will be able to vote by affidavit ballot in your new election district, but re-registering with your new address before October 9th is advisable. Next slide. Okay. Registration forms are available at the Board of Elections, post offices, and most libraries. You can also download and print a form from the New York State Board of Elections homepage link There's a section there that says need a voter registration form. The deadline to register is October 9th, 2020. If you mail your registration, there's something here. Okay. If you mail your registration form, it must be postmarked by that date. The registration form also includes a place where you can also immediately request an absentee ballot. If you know you have registered and you want to check, the easiest way to do that is to go to vote411.org or go to the New York State Board of Elections website, and there's a place there where you can put in your information and they will let you know if you've registered and where you vote and what your party is. Okay.
So the next slide.
Okay. New York, as Linda said, New York State has introduced lots of different ways for applying for an absentee ballot. How can voters obtain an application for an absentee ballot? And what is new about the way to apply?
So as you can see, that unlike what happened in the June primary voting, the absentee ballot applications will not automatically be sent to everyone. You have to apply for one. And the deadline to apply is October 27th. So the sooner you apply, the better, because the sooner you get your absentee ballot in the mail and fill it out and send it in, the more likely it is that it's going to get to the Board of Elections in a timely manner. So the easiest and the fastest way to get an absentee ballot is to go on to this website that we have on the screen now, absenteeballot.elections.newyork.gov. And it is one of the easiest things to navigate. You only have to put in the information about your county, name, date of birth, zip code, and then you get a printable absentee ballot application confirmation and number. So you fill that out and they will immediately send you an email saying that your application is confirmed and what the number is. Next slide. When you receive your ballot, be sure you follow all the instructions. In the past, a lot of absentee ballots have gotten rejected and thrown out. And there are a lot of reasons. And so we're going to get into that a little later. But when you receive that ballot, on the ballot, there are a lot of reasons why you cannot, that they give you. And you can check one of them that tells what the various reasons are that why you cannot vote in person, why you have to vote absentee. So the reasons are that that are always on that absentee ballot is that if you're a caretaker of an individual who's ill or disabled, a resident of a VA hospital, or detained in jail or prison, not a felon. But there's a big change this year, because another option on there is temporary illness or disability. And what the state has approved is that if you don't want to go to a polling place because you feel it's not safe because of COVID-19, then you can check temporary illness or disability, because you're going to sign something saying that you swear that everything on there is true. So what they're saying is check temporary illness or disability if you feel that it's not safe for you to go to a polling place and you want to vote by absentee ballot. This is true only for 2020. That's only for this year. The same thing may or may not be true in 2021. So when you receive your absentee ballot, you need to fill it out. Be sure you read the directions carefully. You sign it, you enclose the oath envelope, you apply postage. You only need one stamp for the absentee ballot, and then you mail it as soon as you can. Now, another thing that you can do when you fill out your absentee ballot is that you can also bring the sealed ballot. You can you can do that yourself, or you can have a friend or a relative do it for you, and you can take it to the Suffolk County Board of Elections in Yaphank, or, and this is something that a lot of people are doing, they're taking it to the Suffolk early voting sites that we're going to be talking about. There are 12 of them, so you can go to any one of those and drop it off in what they're going to have like drop boxes for these ballots. It has to be sealed before you do that. But if you seal it, you can go to an early voting site during the open hours, or you can also take it to your polling place on November 3rd. And one of the reasons why people are doing this is because they feel that during the early voting, there are going to be a lot fewer people around, especially maybe the second or third day of early voting. So a lot of people feel that that it would be safe for them to go to an early voting site and drop off their absentee ballot that they've already completed. Of course, the alternative would be you can just go to that early voting site and vote right there, but that's going to take a little more time. And how much time it takes is going to vary depending upon what day it is and where the site is. Okay, so as I mentioned before, in that June primary and in the past, a lot of absentee ballots did not get counted. Now, why was that?
Do we have the next slide? These are the deadlines that
Okay.
we just added. Okay, these are the important deadlines to know when you're returning your absentee ballot. So it says here, if you bring it in person to the Board of Elections, it has to be received 1 day before Election Day, which is, of course, November 2nd. If you mail it, it must be postmarked 7 days before Election Day. If you send it online, can people send it online?
Well, if you do send it online, it has to be received 7 days before Election Day.
Okay, and I don't know what that voted ballots.
Well, that means that a ballot that has your vote on it,
has to be
your
postmarked.
absentee ballot, which is going to be your absentee ballot that has your vote on it, has to be postmarked. It's talking about the absentee ballots.
It has to be postmarked on Election Day and received 7 days after Election Day. Voted ballots can also be turned in by hand on Election Day. I'm not sure.
So that's what I just went over when I was talking about after you have filled out your absentee ballot,
Right.
and you have sealed the envelope.
Mm-hmm.
You can turn them in by hand on Election Day. You can also turn them in by hand at the early voting sites.
Okay.
And please note that it says that that if it's postmarked on Election Day,
Mm-hmm.
it has to be received 7 days after Election Day. That is the cutoff.
Yeah,
It has a lot of repercussions that we're going to get into later on about that 7 day period after Election Day.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Next slide. Jonathan.
Great.
Next slide.
Are we looking at absentee ballot voting at this point?
Yes, right, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So far, no absentee, but people are waiting for their absentee ballots. People keep saying, I've filled out the application, I've sent it in. So far, none have been sent out yet by the Suffolk County Board of Elections. They will probably go out toward the end of September or the beginning of October. So as Linda mentioned, there were a lot of errors in the June primary, and many ballots may not have been counted. So the state passed a law that says that the Board of Elections must now send a letter to the voter within 24 hours of receiving an absentee ballot that has a problem. For instance, no signature. And that was one of the big issues in June. It has to, if they receive it in time and can check it, which is one reason that we encourage people to send it in quickly. You should send your ballot in early so that they would have time to alert you of a problem and you would be able to correct the issue before the deadline. Okay, so the next slide. And Linda?
Yes, so if you send in an absentee ballot and then decide to vote in person. The question is, can you be accused of fraud? No, you can't be accused of fraud because unlike almost all the other 49 states, you can still vote in person, even if you already handed in your absentee ballot. So that is a whole new thing. And the absentee ballot voter names are going to be checked by the Board of Election against the electronic poll book, which is something that you sign when you do the voting in person. And they will reject the absentee ballot if you've already voted in person. So if you take your absentee ballot on early voting day and hand it in at the drop box, then you decide, oh, no, I want to be sure that my vote counts, so I'm going to actually vote in person. Then you go through the process of signing in on this little iPad thing, and then you go, and then they are going to print out your personal ballot, and then you will have voted 2 times, and the BOE and the Board of Elections is going to, after the election on November 3rd, compare to make sure that all the absentee ballots don't have somebody who voted on election day. That's a whole new twist.
It's very important because it's an answer to the charge that people can vote twice.
Yes, and so I've even heard on public broadcasting stations that you can't vote twice. You're doing something fraudulent if you vote twice.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, in New York State, you can vote twice.
Yes.
By absentee and in person. Now, you cannot vote in person twice.
Right. Okay.
That would be fraud.
Yes.
Okay, next.
Next slide, yeah.
Next slide.
Okay.
The percentage of voters who vote at election time is consistently low. New York has a very bad track record for the number of people voting. So what has changed to make voting easier in order to get those numbers up?
Well, we all remember that until 2019, each voter had only one place and one date to vote. And many voters could not get to the polling place on election day, or they couldn't find the polling place. So this way, the state passed legislation to require county boards of elections to provide sites for 9 days prior to election day, including weekend hours. In Suffolk County, prior to November 3rd, there'll be 12 sites, at least one in each town except for Shelter Island. Voters can cast their votes at any site that's most convenient for them. It doesn't have to be the one in their own town. And the reason that this is possible is because the new system, the new electronic system, allows the Board of Elections to print one ballot for each person. So we used to wonder, if you didn't go to your own polling place, how would they know which candidates you were voting for? Well, what comes out of the machine is the ballot that is your candidates on it. And it's quite amazing when you see that happen, so that each one will have a customized ballot and can print that way. So that's very good, and we hope many people did do early voting in June and found it was very convenient, and we hope that this will continue. It's something that other states have done for many years, and we always wanted New York State to do. So.
And the voting machines that we're using now are supposed to be among the best in the country.
Yeah.
In terms of being reliability, in terms of having a paper trail. So they're safe and they're good, and this process has worked very well. And
as Linda mentioned, now when you come into the voting place, instead of signing a book, they have little Chromebooks, little electronic things, and some people find them difficult, but the election workers are very helpful. You don't have to do much with it, but that gives you your own personalized ballot, which is good.
Good.
So, next slide. And these are the early voting locations. There's 2 in the town of Brookhaven because our town is so big. One is on the South Shore in Mastic, and one is Town Hall. And then there are 2 in one of the other towns. I think it's Babylon, but I'm not sure. And there is none in Shelter Island, which has caused some grief among people.
Yes.
But you'll see on the right.
About that.
Hmm?
People are not happy about that.
No,
That Shelter
no.
Island doesn't have a.
Yeah, they have to take a ferry. But
And-
there aren't a lot of people that need to vote. I mean, well, keep on. But as you can see, the voting hours vary, so that there's all different kinds of times, so that there's a convenient time for everybody. And it has made a big difference in how many people voted. It increased the number of people who voted.
Now, if you can't read what's on the screen, we're going to give you a website where you can go, and then you can just download it yourself to find out where they all are, because there are 12 of them, and you can go to any of the 12.
And most people have already received them in the mail, because the boards of elections were required by the state to send out an informative letter by September 8th. And these early voting locations are on that letter, along with your voting place. So check it out.
And people who were unhappy in June, when we had the primaries, about the way the voting was going and the kinds of and the locations of the polling places and things like that. The problem in June was that they didn't have enough poll workers. They didn't have enough polling inspectors. And they have been working industriously to try to correct that, so that there will be enough people to handle all of these new voting locations for the early voting, as well as the general election. The general election is going to be your regular voting place. It's not going to be all over the place the way these are. That's going to be your regular voting place on November 3rd. Also, the Board of Election has hired 661, at least 661 new polling inspectors. So they think that they've got their bases covered.
Mm-hmm. Good. Okay.
Next slide.
Okay, as we said before, that we are a nonpartisan political organization encouraging informed and active participation in government. And what we've been doing is setting up tables around different places in Suffolk County. The different leagues do it, so that people have access to information and to the registration forms. So we go to the next slide.
Okay, so this is our last slide. And on this last slide, we have the key dates and the websites. So October 9th is the deadline for voter registration. October 24th to November 1 are the 9 days for early voting at the 12 Suffolk locations. And as we mentioned, you can go to any one of those 12 locations, because they have the capability of printing out your particular ballot, regardless of where you live. And October 27th is the deadline to apply for an absentee ballot. And November 3rd is Election Day. Now, the websites that you can go to, these are the friendliest ones, and vote411.org is run by the League of Women Voters, and it's a national website. So wherever you live, you can go to that, and then you click on it, and it will show you your own personal ballot, including any propositions that might be on the ballot. And there are two in Suffolk. There are at least 2 propositions that are going to be on the ballot in November and October. You can also, at vote411.org, you can check your voter registration. You can also, that also will tell you where your polling place is, and it will tell you the schedule for any debates that are going to occur prior to the election. So that is a good site that's full of good information. The ny.gov/earlyvote wedding website is a great one, and it tells you all the early voting sites, and you can go there and you can download it if you want to have them printed, and it gives the dates and times, just like those charts that we saw on the previous slide. You can also go to that website to apply for an absentee ballot. And finally, there's the website suffolkcounty.gov/departments/BOE. And the only reason we have that at the end is because it's a lot to remember, and but that also has good information. So any of these websites, it might be worthwhile. You're going there, you can find out for sure whether you're registered, and you can also see who's running. And that brings us up to who is running.
Right.
So, Nancy, do you want to
Yeah.
tell who's
I
going to?
wanted to ask first, is there a date by which Vote 411 will be ready? Because it's not ready yet, right?
It went online today.
Okay, great. Okay.
It
Okay.
went online today, but there's some, so it taught, all of the candidates have received an invitation to provide background information and answer questions about what their positions are on various things. And they are just in the process now of answering those questions. So if you go to vote411.org right now, it will tell you who the candidates are, but it won't necessarily tell you right now what their positions are. If you go on later on, after they've had a chance to respond, if you go on the middle of October, you should be able to see all that information about what the candidates' positions are.
But remember that it is up to the candidate to respond. And so sometimes you'll find that your candidate hasn't responded and it will say there was no response. So the people working on it work very hard to get the responses from the candidates, but it's not something that happens automatically.
And
A couple of years ago, the league decided because of this to fill in the information on their own, and the candidates didn't like that at all.
Now, the reason why absentee ballots haven't been sent out, because they should have gone out a while on September 18th,
Right.
but they couldn't go out because there have been a lot of contests, and so these cases are in the court now about who's supposed to, who can legitimately be on the ballot and not be on the ballot. And until those court cases get resolved, they won't have a certified ballot. And that's what the delay is all about.
Oh,
So
That's hard to, we can't control that. We just have to wait. So,
yes, but we think that by the end of September, certainly the first week in October, the absentee ballots should be, they expect them to be mailed out.
okay. When November 3rd comes, we in Suffolk County will be casting votes, of course, for the president and vice president of the United States, our congressional representative, New York State senators and assembly members, and a variety of justices and judges. And then we also found out that the presidential debates are going to be held September 19th, 29th, October 15th, and October 22nd from 9 to 10:30 p.m. And then the vice presidential candidates will debate on October 17th, also at 9. And these are almost always carried by the major television statements. And then as we find out about debates by local candidates, we will let Jonathan know and he can publicize that.
But so far, what we know is that the Nassau League of Women Voters is probably going to be having a debate for the 2nd Congressional District. That's Gordon and Garbarino. And that is going to be October 15th.
Okay.
There will be other debates though for the 1st Congressional District and for other races.
Right.
And that will be posted on vote411.org.
okay.
Okay, I think we've covered it all now. So if anybody has any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Well, the only question is the same question you probably have about the online balloting. It said,
I think we don't have it.
yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
Oh, that was the thing I asked about on that page?
Yeah, we have to correct that slide.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I really stumbled there. Yeah, okay, that's what that, okay.
Well, there's the online requesting the ballot, but there's not an
Yes.
online ballot. Yeah.
No,
Right.
correct.
Very good.
And you
And I
can't
think what-
register online either, although you can in many states,
Oh, okay.
because you have to have a hand signature.
I think
Yeah.
a lot of people are going to be surprised to learn the lag time that's going to happen after the election on November 3rd.
Yeah.
and the amount of time that it's going to take before they even start to scan and count the absentee ballots, it's going to be at least 7 to 10 days and maybe longer.
Mhm.
Agonizing.
Yep, could be agonizing.
And that's a hand count. They don't do that with the scanners that they bought.
Because they have to make that comparison between the absentee ballots
Mhm. Yeah,
and the in-person voting.
yeah, it's important that we do that to avoid double voting. But it does
Yeah.
take time. Yeah.
But they're not going to even start doing those comparisons until 7 days after,
Mhm.
because they have to have all absentee ballots in-house
Mhm.
before they start doing the.
Oh,
Yeah, and that deadline, as Linda said, is 7 days after the election. 7.
okay.
Yeah.
Wow. This is going to be difficult. Everything's been difficult this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There are people who say that we shouldn't be encouraging people to do absentee voting for that reason. That if we could get people to go to the polls, then we would get the results faster. And the New York results are usually not very surprising anyway.
Yeah.
In terms of the president. So,
No.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just think considering COVID, it's, you have to give people the opportunity not to have to go in person.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the point of that, is to make sure
Yeah.
everybody
Right.
can vote without danger. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I
Thank
think
you. Oh, I just said thank you. That's all.
That's okay. You don't have any more questions, Jean?
No, I don't. Everything else was very clear.
Okay.
It was indeed. I don't see any questions that have come through our chat thread, but that was a very informative presentation with a lot of great information. I've taken a lot of notes on my end. So thank you both, Linda and Nancy, for tremendous content and for helping us decipher all of that and make it clear for everyone. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for doing that for us, and for offering all of the content for tonight's program. Do you have anything else that you would like to add for this before I stop recording our program? Is there anything else that you would like to cover in the meantime?
We just want to encourage you to get your absentee, be sure you're registered, get your absentee ballot and fill it out as soon as possible if you decide to vote absentee, and vote.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And take your family. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending our meeting this evening on Facts for Voting in the General Elections, brought to us by League of Women Voters of Brookhaven and also Save a Library. Thank you once again for attending our program, and take a look at savealibrary.org for more exciting programs to come. Once again, thank you so much, League of Women Voters of Brookhaven, for tonight's
Thank you.
program.
Thank you for having
Great
us.
job, and thank
very
you.
much. It was a good practice session. Now I'm going to figure out what I need to do differently.
Perfect. Perfect.